You're listening to the Religion Unplugged podcast. I'm Matthew Peterson, editor of the show. It's been 3 weeks since the US and Israel attacked Iran, killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. And for 3 weeks, rockets have flown across the Middle East in all directions. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Iraq have kept their guard up as different assets are targeted. As these oil-rich nations are thrown into turmoil, gas prices in the U.S. have gone up by nearly $1 in the last month, with many Americans wondering when the increase will slow down. More crucially, 2 different water desalination plants have been hit. These facilities are essential for the hydration of millions of Middle Easterners, and neither the U.S., Israel, or Iran have taken responsibility for these destabilizing attacks. Over 20,000 people are suffering injuries from the war, and over 2,500 people have been killed, with the majority being in Iran and Lebanon. Babies, not even a year old, have been among the casualties, as have 168 other children at an Iranian elementary school. And even after Khamenei's death, it's clear that Iran has pockets brimming with replacement leaders who support the continuance of his extremist regime. So, in a conflict where death is abundant and instability is crashing in from all sides, it's worth asking, what do the Iranian people stand to gain from all this chaos? To answer this question, I sat down with Erica Kazrai. Erica is an Iran-born American and Middle East expert. She's a human rights activist and producer of a short documentary called Occupied Homeland, which details the January 2026 massacre of Iranian protesters and the history of the Iranian people. Erica was also formerly the Middle East advisor to a member of the U.S. House of Representatives Armed Services Committee. In this week's episode, Erica speaks on how the Islamic Revolution came to be, the difference between Iranian culture and Islamic culture, the possibility of democracy in Iran, and her hopes and fears for the future. Here's Erica. I think, first of all, what I want to understand is for Americans and people just outside of Iran, not familiar with the larger history and the politics of what's going on, what are some big misconceptions you're hearing, things that you'd like to clear up, things that people are getting wrong that you can correct for us?
Well, I think for the average American, I think they associate Iran with Islam. And obviously, because Iran is an Islamic state right now, it is, in my opinion, occupied by an Islamic state. And I think most people think that Iranians are like their Arab neighbors. Iranians, when they leave Iran, when they come to the West or when they go to Europe, they really take off the heaviness of religion. Like they want nothing to do with Islam and religiosity. So I think in the era of political correctness, people are afraid to talk about issues that are sort of sensitive. But I think this is one of the most important issues, is that Iranians are rejecting religiosity and rejecting we're all terrorists because of the Islamic sort of Islamist mentality that has been branded on Iranians and really the Middle East. So that's probably the most important misconception that I would like to clear up, is that Iranians are not all Muslim. Iranians are very ethnically and religiously diverse.
Yeah. So how did we get here exactly then? When there's, there is religious minorities there, and there's lots of, as you say, diversity. From a religious freedom's perspective, how did we get to the point where it was this sort of radical form of Islam that was just taking the reins and has done so for so many decades?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, I like that question a lot. It's really challenging. Iran, before the 1979 revolution, I don't like to call it a revolution because revolutions usually mean progression. And since 1979, Iran has not progressed. Iran has gone completely backwards. So I'll call it a coup. Was ruled by monarchy for 2,500 years. And there was freedom of religion. There was Christians, there were Jews, there were Zoroastrians, there were Baha'is, there were atheists, and people were free to worship how they chose. when the Islamic Republic was incepted, slowly, and really in the beginning, the religious minorities were persecuted first: the Baha'is, the Jews, the Christians. And everything about Iranian society and Iranian culture and history was erased slowly, right? It wasn't done overnight. Revolutions don't take place overnight. So, unfortunately, I think Islam took over every aspect of people's lives, personal lives, civil society, and the propaganda against the United States and Israel. I mean, I remember as a child the day when I didn't wear hijab to school, and then the day I had to wear hijab. So even though I was young, I have memories of the turn of events. And they really, I think the ideology in the Islamic Republic really stole everything about what it meant to be Iranian from Iranians. And in fact, today, I don't know if you know, but Iranians celebrate March 21st, the spring solstice, as the Iranian New Year. It's called Nowruz, which means new day. It's the first day of spring, is our new year, when the earth has completely rotated around the sun 365 days. And there is an ancient tradition. It actually comes from the Zoroastrian tradition. And it's a beautiful one. And we light fire. And we jump over it. I know it sounds really weird, but it's called Red Wednesday. And it's the end of the year ritual, right? Where you light the fire, and the fire represents, the truth and the light, and people, light these fires, and they jump over them, and they ask the fire to give the person that is jumping over the fire the heat and the light from the darkness of the winter. So really, the whole tradition is to celebrate the triumph of light over darkness, because we're ending the longest nights and entering the new season. The regime has forbid people from coming to the streets to celebrate this, this tradition that has been celebrated for thousands of years, right? So they've slowly erased every tradition that makes us Persian, that makes us Iranian. And unfortunately, what it has done is it has turned people against religious belief and religious tradition. And if I'll go as far as saying that Iranians hate Islam and want nothing to do with it. That's how we got here.
Wow. Yeah, I think that is, to touch on what you started talking about, I think that is such a huge assumption that a lot of people I talk to have, which is that Islam and Iranian history are endlessly intertwined, inseparable, that those cultures are the same. And I think you're saying some pretty radically different things than that, which is so fascinating to me. Can you talk about the contributions that other religious minorities have made to Iranian culture over the years, and then also talk about what life looks like today for a religious minority living in Iran?
Well, religious minorities live underground. I think after the revolution, most of the Jewish community left Iran. They went to the West, or they went back to Israel. I know there's a large Iranian Jewish community in Israel. And for the Baha'is, obviously, the Baha'is live under severe surveillance by the regime. They're not allowed to be educated. They're not allowed, their graves are desecrated. Their businesses are shut down. I mean, they don't have like real identity. And I would say for Christians, specifically Christians, they can't assemble it's against the law to assemble in a church. You can't evangelize. Having a Bible in Farsi is not allowed. Can only be in Armenian. The Armenian Orthodox Church is allowed to operate, but only Armenians are allowed to participate and practice. So if you're a Muslim, you cannot go to an Armenian Orthodox Church, or you can't assemble. Sharia law has invaded every aspect of personal life, right? And what it has done is that it has removed so many individual rights from people. What to wear, marriage rituals, funeral rituals. I mean, it's in every aspect of society. During this last massacre that happened in Iran on January 8 and 9, the parents and family members of those who lost a family member in defiance of Islamic rituals over the graves of their loved ones, they would dance. They would read poems from Ferdowsi, from Shahnameh, which is, so Persian. It's so anti-Islam. The Iranian people are, and I say this, and I know that's not a really great visual, but I say this because it's really happening. Iranians are regurgitating Islam. It's been shoved down their throats for 47 years. They've had it. They don't want anything to do with religion. And so Iranians are finding themselves again. Iranians are becoming proud of who they are as Persians and Persian culture, history. I mean, our civilization goes back thousands of years, and they want to be proud of that. They don't want to be proud of the 1400 years that Islam invaded our country. That's how they see it. They see Islam as an invader. So I don't know if that gives you a picture of life in Iran, right?
Yeah, no, that's so fascinating. I think I'm trying to understand.
Imagine if, like, in America, Christianity was the religion of the state,
right?
And everything that you did in society was directed by the Christian faith and the laws of Christianity. Now, in Christianity, I think women and men are equal to each other. At least that's how I feel. But in Islam, women and men are not equal to each other. Women do not have the same rights as men. So imagine a society where generation after generation, a woman has been equated as half of that of a man, or having half the rights of a man. So the psychological trauma that Sharia law has caused in Iran is so great that people are now willing to die to be free. So,
yeah, I mean, I think so. Essentially, what you're saying is the people are fundamentally opposite from the people who govern them, like your average. Wow.
Although at this point, I don't know who's governing, because Israel and the United States is just eliminating the bad guys pretty quickly, which is great news. In fact, today, the Basiji commander, the person who was in charge of suppressing protesters, was eliminated. Wow. And Ali Larijani, who was the Islamic Republic security chief, the person who's in charge of the repression of protesters, he was also eliminated.
Yeah, I think that was something I wanted to ask about, is sort of, I can't believe how deep the bench is, really, for how many, it seems like, other backup leaders they have. They have backups on backups on backups, where this regime is so, it's so, thickly entrenched in the government. And I'm really just curious, what's it going to take for that to fall? What would that even look like to start to, because it seems like, taking out the head guy keeps not totally bringing it to its knees? What would that look like?
Yeah, the regime has been compared to an octopus who has many tentacles, and the tentacles of the Islamic Republic, unfortunately, reach far and wide, and they are definitely trying to stay alive, but hopefully the United States and Israel has a pretty solid strategy on eliminating as many people as possible and dismantling the IRGC. And hopefully a lot of at least the call to the people who have arms have, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi have called on those who have arms to lay down their arms and side with the people. And I hope that that's what it will take. And that will really be the end, is when people have the moral integrity to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep killing people.
And how much is the Iranian state being supported by surrounding Islamic nations? How much is their backing helping to fuel the fire that's keeping them in power?
Well, I don't see too many allies coming to the defense of Iran at the moment. Even Qatar, who I thought was a great ally to the to Iran and to the United States, is sort of showing their hands now. They don't want to be on the side of the losing game. So I don't see a lot of support, although I see Russia and China and Turkey coming to the defense of Iran, but I don't really, and Pakistan, but I don't know if those are actors we trust. I think our Arab neighbors have realized that Iran is a menace in the Middle East, and a free democratic Iran means a peaceful Middle East, a stable Middle East where Israel isn't constantly looking over its shoulder towards another October 7.
Right. Yeah, that ties in well to what I wanted to go into next, which is what would you like to see in terms of democracy in Iran? What would that look like to you and to some of the people that you respect in terms of just sort of seeing alternatives for Iranian futures?
That's a really good question. I think that's a question for the Iranian people. I'm an American citizen. I'm an Iran-born American citizen. I've lived in America for most of my life. I've had the privilege of practicing democracy. I know what it feels like to have individual rights. But when you're talking to a nation, 90 million people who've never experienced, and well, maybe my grandmother's generation and my mother's generation experienced life before the revolution under a monarchy. But my generation doesn't know. They have no clue what it looks like to live, or to even dream of what it looks like to live in a democratic nation. And so I think it will be up to the Iranian people at the ballot box and at a national referendum where they can choose the form of government, whether that's a constitutional monarchy or a democratic republic. It'll be up to the people to decide. And I think the obligation of the West and those that are tracking Iran is to educate the Iranian people and to help empower them to envision what a future democratic Iran could look like. And those building blocks of a nation, the pillars of a democracy, those things are very important. And I mean, just think about it for a moment. These are people for 47 years who've been traumatized by religious ideology that has forbid them from experiencing the most precious, rights that a human being has. So it's going to take a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of work on educating people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's just an anger against what's currently in power, where it seems like people know that's not what they want, but maybe it's almost hard to envision what else there could be. and to really start building something?
That's a great question, actually. As you know, for those of us in the Iranian community or in the diaspora who've been working on Iran issues, me specifically on human rights and religious freedom, what I say is, every revolution imagines a world that it wants to build, right? But if you don't know how to build it, you have to be able to imagine it. And I think that's our responsibility, is what does that look like? How can I help you imagine what a free Iran looks like? And that, I feel like, is where we've kind of come short, in my opinion. I don't think we've done a very good job preparing the Iranian people for that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, do you have similar, are there other nations that have gone through these similar periods of severe, state religious rule that were able to come out of it and successfully become democratic societies? Do you have similar states that you can point to when you start to help people, talk about what that might look like?
I don't know of any Islamic states that, Syria is still an Islamic state, unfortunately. It was trying. I don't know if you know, but the Syrian Democratic Forces in northeast Syria were able to really show the world that it is possible to self-govern, and to have religious freedom, and have representatives from every religious group be represented in that governance. But I think for Iran is a unique opportunity, because Iran was the first Islamic state in the modern world. It was Pakistan, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Qatar. They're all Islamic states. The difference between Iran and our Arab neighbors and our Afghan neighbors is that Iranians don't see themselves as Muslim. They see themselves as Iranian. They don't identify themselves with their religion. Whereas our Arab neighbors and our Afghan neighbors, they do see themselves as Muslim first. Even when they come to the West, or when they immigrate to the West, they bring their religion with them and they hold on to their religion. Whereas Iranians, if you know Iranians, when they go to the West, they take off religion. They don't want to have anything to do with it.
That's so interesting.
It's a long road. It's a long road ahead. But I believe that Iranians are educated, and I really feel like they've had enough. They want something other than this. Whatever this is not what they want.
Yeah. I'd love for you to help me understand what your biggest, concern is going into this time where there is all this war going on and there's just a lot of uncertainty. What your biggest concern is, but then also what your biggest hope is, the thing that makes you feel the most hopeful about the future of Iran based on what's going on right now.
My concern is that the United States will walk away after the bombs are dropped. When the United States left Afghanistan and left Iraq, they made one mistake, and that was not ensuring that their constitutions ensured religious freedom. Each of those countries are still Islamic states after the United States left. But my hope is that the United States and Israel will help shepherd the Iranian people to victory, help shepherd the people so that there is no chaos, that there is no power vacuums, if you will, that there will be stability, that there'll be a peaceful transfer of power from, this crazy, evil entity that has just caused so much havoc in the Middle East. I'm sure that it's going to be a long road, but if Israel and the United States wants to see a peaceful Middle East, I think shepherding it all the way to referendum is really the key. Making sure that we have allies and partners who are willing to walk with the Iranian people in this season of transforming Iran from an Islamic state to whatever that looks like, a constitutional monarchy or democratic republic. So that's my hope.
Yeah.
My hope is that they will be shepherded.
Yeah.
Not just left hanging like, okay, the bombs are dropped, the bad guys are dead, figure it out.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That's
very well said.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone through most of what I wanted to talk through, so I'm just going to end on asking you, is there anything that you wanted to expand on that we talked about, or anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be helpful for our listeners to hear about?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I've seen from Christians, the Christian reaction, is pray for the Christians of Iran. It's like, okay, well, what about everyone else? I hope that the Christian listeners, audience, people who are plugged in, understand that we need to pray for the entire nation of Iran and for the nation of Israel, because Israelis are in bomb shelters because Iran is the number one enemy. I mean, growing up, the first thing we were taught in school was to say death to Israel and death to America. And these very same people that we were told to, that we were supposed to wish death upon are the ones that are helping us right now, right? We didn't know what we were saying as kids. We just did it because they told us to. But when I finally grew up and realized what in the world did we do, what were they thinking, if you're praying, please pray for both non-Christians and Christians, because everyone is held hostage, both Christian and non-Christian. And, my hope is that Iran will be free soon. So that's how your listeners can be praying. And I'd like to just plug in that my colleagues and I just recently produced a short film called Occupied Homeland. You can find it on YouTube. And it tells the story of the Iranian people during one of the most, traumatic moments of really every Iranian, watching the regime massacre almost 40,000 people and feeling completely helpless. So we got together and we produced a short 17-minute film, and we would be grateful if you would watch it and share it with your network and tell others about it, because I think it's important to to understand the Iranian diaspora, the Iranian people living in exile, and sort of feel the moment of what it was like to experience this massacre together as a diaspora.
Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube. It's free. Occupied Homeland. I had to plug that one in. Thanks.
No, that's great. We'll put that in the show notes and in the description so people can find that down below if they want it. Erica, thank you so much for your time. Really, really interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Just so appreciate.
Thanks for bringing visibility to the plight of the Iranian people.
Of course. Yeah. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and happy spring.
Same to you.